You're listening to Completing the Shelf, a nerd review podcast where two brothers take a deep dive into all of the corners of nerd culture, from film and television to video games, graphic novels, and whatever else we're passionate about.
Today, I want to talk about nothing.
Oh, really? Nothing? Wow, that's all we do. What's different?
Well, this time I want to talk about a show about nothing.
Oh, yes. Seinfeld, classic Seinfeld, yeah.
1989 to 1998. Classic 90s sitcom. Kind of like the granddaddy of modern sitcoms.
This is something I, regretted never watching. Someone who loves comedy so much. It's something that's been missing in my repertoire. So I asked you, give me the main meat of the show. Give me episodes I have to watch so I can get through it in a reasonable amount of time for this podcast. And you gave me a list, and I just of 30 episodes to get through.
Speaking of lists, when we first conceptualized this idea for Completing the Shelf, this is the first thing we put on the list to do. This was our first episode, and then we decided to do a Nintendo Switch two-parter, but this was the first thing.
Well, it's always been something I felt like I needed to watch, being such a stand-up fan that I am. And Jerry Seinfeld being one of the best.
You're a stand-up fan.
Stand-up. Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Sam. Thank you, ma'am. I want to ask you, what was your thought process in the list that you made for the episodes you want me to watch? Because you just gave me a bunch of episodes. There was, it wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason.
There was. What I considered when I made the list was relevance to pop culture. The references like yada yada and the soup Nazi, these are things that are enduring, and at least people in my generation and the generations that preceded me, these are big deal quotes that you can just throw around.
So it's just your favorite episodes?
Well, yeah, favorite ones, but also ones that are maybe have longevity. Also, I really want to just walk around and say hello.
Well, that episode specifically, I didn't care for that much, but overall I really
the only thing I like
show.
about that episode is the voice.
Yes. I actually, after watching a good portion of it, I actually really enjoyed it. By the end, it kind of the enjoyment tapered off a little bit, and I'll explain why later, but my theory of why you picked these episodes were to make the finale make sense for me, because it seemed like every episode you picked, the plot was relevant to the finale. So I really liked, I thought, oh, maybe he's just taking care of me, and just, put him here, and everything's great.
No, my master plan, I looked smarter than I was.
That's nice.
That is funny. Was every episode I chose represented in the characters that returned in the finale?
There was more episodes than what was represented, but it seemed like everything that was in the finale, referenced-wise, I at least had seen, which is interesting, because it's a lot of references.
I think that's testimony to the excellence of Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David. The best episodes that stand out end up in that finale. And so my list just organically reflected that.
No surprise, I don't think hello is in it's in the finale.
No, I don't think so.
I do not understand that. Let me ask. What is the point of that one? Did he actually hear her belly button? Oh, by the way, spoilers for the entire series. Did he actually hear the belly button, or is just in his imagination he thought it was funny? Because I do that all the time.
I think the reason that episode's funny is because we all do that. We personify things like a kid, but a lot of us adults don't just let it out.
You know what I appreciate? If that is the reason, what I appreciate so much is in the last season they're already coming up with new everything ideas, new all-encompassing human ideas. In the last season they haven't tackled yet, which is impressive because the show is pretty consistently good. Season 8 feels like season 2. It feels just as good. It doesn't lose its soul, lose its way in any way. I think that's really showing how focused the scripts were. How none of these characters are allowed to grow in any way. They're never allowed to move forward. They're just awful people that stay stuck in their own way forever.
Well, okay, that's funny you say that, because Larry David, one of the co-creators, he famously made this rule. He called it the no hugging, no learning rule, meaning that the show must avoid being sentimental and have zero moral lessons, and that the characters are never allowed to learn from what they do wrong. So that was a rule unique in the writing.
Because one length it's just like, yes, that's how we want to write our show, but another length it's like it comments on how like mundane and monotonous sitcoms are and how nothing ever happens. Like it's also kind of like some kind of parody, like meta commentary on just sitcom culture, because there's a lot of shows you've watched on sitcoms. It feels like nothing ever happens, but that's the joke in Seinfeld, that nothing happens. It's about nothing.
Well, the thing is, like in storytelling, characters, if there's no change, if there's no conflict, there isn't a story. Yet somehow, like in comics and stand-up, there's an appearance of change, but nothing actually really changes.
Well, I would like to discuss, is this show really about nothing? Because I don't think it is at all. I think it has a pretty consistent plot. It just, of these characters, and there's always storylines at least that focus on a thing and have a beginning, middle, end. They have arcs. They wrap up. It's just, then the next episode it just starts anew. It's more of just a joke at that point. It doesn't actually like it really happened to them.
I think what you're trying to say is there may not be an overarching storyline from the episode 1 to the finale, but there's definite consistency.
It's episodic, which is like a lot of shows. Which means why is it unique?
Its theme. I think the theme it explores makes it unique. Yeah. It's looking at what it means to be a human in the 20th century.
Because I feel like a lot of sitcoms, especially back then, were pretty mundane life things. So
sure. Cheers.
Yeah. So maybe not that it's about nothing, but I think that nothing happens. I think that's really what happens. It's just
the fact that they could have a scene sitting in a coffee shop talking about the button and the button placement on some guy's sweater. I think that's what makes Seinfeld unique, and that could be entertaining.
Yeah, it's just about the life. It's about just regular life, and that's really interesting. And also, what's interesting is how horrible these people are in their regular lives.
Exactly.
Kramer, Elaine, George, and Jerry are the worst people, and that's what I love. I love in the finale where they say it's a miracle you found each other, because it is. They're all just horrible in their own way. They're always selfish. They always look out for themselves and what they want and like and makes them comfortable.
Now, I have an argument against that for Kramer. I think Kramer is just like free soul, and he's just bouncing around. He's just raw energy.
Yeah, but if you think about all their careers, right? Like Jerry's stand-up comedian. That's not really, a regular job. George, it doesn't seem like he ever works a day in his life. He just gets paid for it. And Elaine, Elaine's job is just useless. Like a lot of her,
she serves incompetent men.
Yeah, so all of their they pretty much all do the exact same thing as Kramer. It's just, they found a way to make money. Kramer obviously.
We don't know what Kramer does.
Yeah, but Kramer could be doing the most helpful thing or useful thing out of all of them. They all have kind of these vague somehow jobs, because it's just maybe that's too much realism to find a real job for them, but I really do think that that's part of it.
Well, I think Seinfeld is hyper realistic, right? Because especially in later seasons, the scenarios get way outlandish.
It's really goofy,
almost cartoonish.
Yeah, but I like
especially, George's marriage. Or impending marriage.
I cannot believe when I was watching The Invitation and Susan, his fiance, died. I couldn't. I was like screaming. I couldn't handle it. I could not handle that happening. I was like, no way.
It's like it was a joke.
No way is this dealt in such a passé way. There's no way that there's. It ruined, it didn't ruin it, but it was just you really open your eyes to ever since then you're just these people need to be punished, because they don't care. The line the doctor has in the finale when he's up as witness and he says, what did you think George's reaction to you telling him his wife died? He said,
this is in the finale.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. George had an expression of, what is it? Restrained jubilation. And I'm just like,
love it.
That's one of the best lines of the whole show, I think, because it really shows what type of person George is. And what type of person they all are, really. They're all...
Well, okay. Who's worse?
That's the thing. If you had a... Because they're all bad people. But if you had a rate, from redeemable to just totally irredeemable, I think you would have to put Kramer on top because he's just so witless. He's so ignorant to his own, like,
You would put him closer to redeemable?
Yeah, he would have to be because
okay.
it just, even though, like, sometimes he just does horrible things, but they end up helping someone. I remember the Junior Mint episode, one of the best episodes. He drops the Junior Mint into the open surgery patient, but it ended up healing him. Or when he was, what's his friend, his little person friend?
Oh, I forget.
Anyway, when he's in acting and Kramer wears too tight of jeans so he can't sit down, but it actually makes the scene better so the guy gets the job. Like, a lot of the times he actually does help people sometimes, and that's more than you can say for the other three. The other three never do anything for anyone.
Yeah, so you might think, oh, Jerry, he's kind of normal, right?
Yeah, but actually he's just as bad.
Well, he's just, like, super apathetic, right? Because, like, he's the guy, like, oh, my car didn't start. I was late for my job interview. Oh, that's a shame. You know, he just doesn't care.
But at least he understands and recognizes social constructs and rules.
This is true, but his other flaw is he's fixated. He cares too much about the wrong things. So if the person looks uglier in the wrong light, or has manly hands, or doesn't eat their peas, or whatever.
It's how it's not just ugly.
Relationships.
Yeah, it's not just ugly. It's like the littlest, minute issues you could ever imagine. It's impressive. Yeah. No, I would, but I wouldn't think he. See, Elaine and George are on just a whole nother level, though. I think.
You're right. You're right.
Like at least Jerry. Like, I relate to Jerry some ways. Like his apathy towards things. Like, I really like. If I relate to him, I can't put him any lower than Kramer. So we'll put. I personally want to put Jerry at number 2 most redeemable out of the 4.
Okay.
But he's still not that great of a person.
Sure. So then it's Elaine or George. Now, Elaine, she is self-serving. She manipulative. Her relationship with Buddy.
That's the thing. I feel like.
What are your thoughts on Elaine?
I feel like Elaine, like, she is probably the most liked person. She's the most social. She has the most friends outside of the 4 group, but it's always a trick that she's friends with them. Like, she doesn't actually care about them at all. And so I feel like that's so much more devious than Jerry, who just doesn't care about anyone. Elaine, like, gets into people's lives and then still doesn't care about them while the other people care, like, ugh. So and the Soup Nazi episode ruined her for me. Like, that was the worst episode. Because it was a great episode, but she just, I don't mind the Soup Nazi in that episode. He's in his right. He makes delicious food, and she ruins his life. She absolutely ruins his life because she doesn't like the way he operates his business, even though it's not hurting anyone. Just because she can't conform to anything she doesn't want to do. Like, she ruins this guy's life by getting, a secret recipe out of the world. Yeah. And his business has to close. Now, that's funny.
Because the actual guy that the Soup Nazi is based off of is in New York, and he said when this episode came out, it ruined his life because people would just spoof it. And the N-word, Nazi, was illegal to say in his story. We'd kick you out.
And the thing is, like, just to bolster Kramer, like, Kramer was good friends with the Soup Nazi, this upstanding man. So that really shows.
Kramer's kind of friends with everyone.
Yeah, the step down, the step down from Kramer to the other 3. But part of me wants to put Elaine last as most irredeemable person, but you really can't ignore George's, hang-ups.
George is in a class all himself.
He's really
a
special.
Man-child.
I think he makes the show. He makes the show.
He does. In some ways, he's like Michael Scott. Michael Scott is just pure. He just wants to be loved by people. And so his goofy misadventures or misstatements is his way of trying to become loved, but he's just socially awkward. George is socially awkward, but he doesn't want to be loved by people, right? He just wants to advance himself and get what he wants without having to give anything. So he's
all George wants is to be comfortable. That's all he wants.
Summer of George.
That's all he wants, is to be in a place where he's never bothered. But the thing is, the fact that he's such an awful person, everyone else bothers him. Everything else bothers him. It's it's like only Jerry that doesn't bother him because Jerry doesn't care about anything, and I don't know. He's easily. Part of me like pities him so much that he's not the worst, but the fact that I pity him so much mean like he almost thrives in a situation where he's pitied. I think that's a problem.
George thrives when he's given the chance to scheme, right? That's when he's so excited. He's his fullest person when he is advising Jerry in a way to scheme against someone and get something.
He gets so excited. Aha, let's go, Jerry! You know, like every time they think of an idea to lie and scheme around someone, switch out some cassette tapes or steal some rye bread from an old lady, anything possible, George is in on immediately. But just funny because what was the one episode? The Abstinence.
Oh yes, brilliant.
Where like he's finally.
I think this demonstrates the character of George.
It feels like everyone in the show just cares about sex and food. I feel like that's it. That's all that matters. That's the driving force of humanity is sex and food.
It really is.
I think that's the show shows that because the second George has to stop having it, he becomes the most fulfilled and well-rounded human being ever.
Because he can put his mind towards actual things that matter.
Yes, and he just starts
reading
textbooks.
It's like that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing, right? You
Exactly.
get your basic needs taken care of. But once sex is off the table, you can't even think about it, he's good to go. And that's what I think the brilliance of this show is. My question to you is, Tommy, why does Seinfeld have an enduring value?
Oh, 100%.
Will it be around for 50 years and still matter?
It better. It better be around in some way or form because there's dated things in it that there's jokes in it that maybe you can't relate to, but there's the themes of the show still will exist as long as humanity exists, you know?
I agree. And that theme is that we are a bunch of selfish, terrible people.
Exactly.
At our core. And Seinfeld tears away all the preconceived things, all the masks that we wear, and shows us through these four people the raw inhumanity of our humanity.
That's completely true, and you never see this core group of four grow like for permanently. They never get married. There's no other friends that come in really. It's really they push everyone away. Whenever anyone comes in contact with these people, their life gets worse. Like their life just gets worse, and it's never a good idea. So that idea of they're almost like an exaggeration of this. Like all four of them represent the selfishness of humanity, while every other character is like the good of it. Is like they have the good of the humanity. Like those people they ruin, there's good in all of them, while these four have no good.
Yet we identify most with the four.
Yep.
And here I have a theory, and I have to take us to the Starship Enterprise. All right, you ready to live long and prosper? So there's fan speculation or theory that Kirk, Spock, McCoy are a representation of one human being, right? Spock, the logical reasoning part, McCoy, the passion, the emotion, and then Kirk kind of brings it all together and he uses those sides. So do we see one human being divided into four separate units in Elaine, George, Jerry, and
I don't
Kramer?
think so. I think they're all pretty well realized. And they're just all awful.
They're not different aspects of our selfish nature.
Well, then what would you define them as? What would you define the characters as?
Well, Jerry's our apathy, right?
Okay.
Elaine is our relational. I don't know. Elaine's hard to peg, but George is definitely our manipulative, like id. He just wants things. He wants to be comfortable. Kramer's our wackadoo, just ADD, creativity, imagination, try anything, right? So we'd have to figure out Elaine, but maybe there's just all of our negative aspects of the human condition explored for 9 years on TV.
Yeah, I love how all of them just get each other. Like they just understand everything about each other. Like my favorite, what makes me so happy is whenever Jerry says something and George just repeats it. You know, like just like exactly. I got the mumps. Like it's just like the beautiful. It's such. Jason Alexander is easily the best actor of this entire show,
and the only one not to be nominated for any awards.
And he's like, it's not even close to me. Like he makes the show. I think when I was watching Seinfeld in an interview, he was talking about the marine biology episode and that final monologue George gives at the end.
Yes,
perfect. They wrote that whole thing right before Jason had to give it, and he had to like memorize it in 10 minutes, and he got on his first try in this amazing way. It's like this 4-minute scene with one of the best payoffs in any episode. It's the best punchline, I think, to an entire episode, right there. So I think
I just love the physicality of how he holds the golf ball too.
It's like pungently good. Like it's just like, yes, these people, and it's the whole plot of the show is awful. It's another horror, like not like bad, but like here's an example of them being awful people again.
Yes. And now I have to correct myself. For acting Emmys, both Michael Richards and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, they won, while Jason, Jerry Stiller, and a bunch of other actors were nominated. So I was wrong.
See, Jerry's probably the worst actor in the show.
Well, he's not an actor; he's a comedian.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think he does a good job.
I love his stand. I love how they open every show with a semi-relevant stand-up bit and close it with a stand-up bit.
That goes away later seasons.
I still like that. I like when they had it because I like Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up. So that alone,
simple. It's so simple and crisp.
Well, he's one of those people that just like. He started in the late 70s and just was good. Like he never had like that rough, like he was always good. He was always clean. He was just this 20-year-old something guy that was immediately like he was special. And that's it's always been this core focus with him, and his show is very corely focused too.
His stand-up is central, and the original script for the show was called Stand Up. It was going to be like a 90-minute mockumentary about how a stand-up comedian comes up with the material from like their real life. Mm-hmm. And NBC is like, whoa, this is so great. Let's develop this into an actual series. And boom, you have Seinfeld.
Seinfeld is like the Bible of stand-up. It is like, if you want to learn it, that's the core of it. There you go. Look at his stand-up. So, and then this show is like sitcom. It's like the perfect sitcom. It's just so...
It's funny every time.
And like I said before, like it never degrades. It just stays on its own level. I don't even think it gets better. I just think it stays good. But again, you only had me watch a couple episodes.
Sure. What were your favorite ones?
Well, I was just gonna ask real quick. Like, you had me watch these episodes. What about all the ones in between? Are they just as good, or is there like this lack of quality?
I'd say it is stable.
It's stable.
Except a few episodes that like are contingent on a plot thread. Sometimes you get tired because you're so used to the one and done episodes.
So when the show's not about nothing, it suffers. Like I was not a big fan of The Pitch. I think it was too self-referential. I think it started getting unfunny. The whole everything with NBC I felt like was weak.
I agree, but I also love that stuff too. But I think it activates a different pleasure center in the brain, right?
I don't know. It's tough to say because I really think it almost got too cheeky. I think it got too cheeky for its own good because this show like it has this tone it sits in where it just talks about real life, and when they talk about that, it just doesn't feel like anyone could relate to it.
True.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, in terms of relatability, I think this show could still be relatable today. Well, imagine Seinfeld commenting on the 2016 presidential election, right?
Well, they never commented on politics in the show.
No, they didn't comment it, but it was included. There was an episode I didn't put on the list. I forget the title, but it was centered around the New York mayor race, and there was two candidates. This is when Rudy Giuliani was running, and he won, obviously, but they shot two endings to the episode because the episode was coming out on election night, I believe. And so they had the candidates both do speeches for the show. And like that's how up to date and relevant they were. And imagine what they could do today with the internet, you know?
They could do a lot. They could.
I want George going on a Twitter massacre, you know? and you recently just watched the reunion episode, quote unquote.
Yes.
That was shown on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah. It was over a couple episode arc where Larry David is playing himself and he reunites with the cast of Seinfeld to do a reunion. And what'd you think about that?
I mean, it's still funny. Like, it's just as funny.
I toilet.
It's just as funny. as the original show. Maybe that's why like there's no reason to do more of it, because it'll just stay just as funny. It never gets better. It's still just as funny. Maybe that's why creatively maybe it doesn't fulfill Jerry as much. You said he declined what? He declined what? He declined something, right?
NBC offered a 10th season.
Oh, okay.
And he declined $110 million for that 10th season. Now, the reason was I did some research and found a roundtable discussion with the 4 leads and Larry David. And, like, Michael and Jason, they were all ready to come back. They're like, Jason's particularly is like, I have George down. I know him. I could play him forever. But Jerry...
Probably his best role.
Jerry was producer, writer, casting, and acting. So when there was a summer hiatus, when the actors went off and like did other things or took a break, Jerry was writing the next season. So he was getting to burnout, and so he's like, whoa, I gotta stop.
Well, because Jerry Seinfeld loves stand-up. I don't think he loves this as much as stand-up. I think stand-up fuels him, while this probably distracts him from what he loves most.
He loved the show, but the show really destroyed him. He actually took up meditation because the stress and anxiety was so great, because he was so committed to quality. And
it showed. It definitely showed. Now, reception for the show, like how did people see it then? And then do you have an experience of like how people, maybe my age, like experience it? Because I've heard you've shown clips of Seinfeld in your class that you teach. So what was it like during and then after, reception-wise?
Well, during, it was a water cooler show. People watch the episode, they go to work, and they quote yada, 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 or, they talk about what happened.
Okay.
And it was kind of risque in the moment, because especially with episodes like The Contest, right? Our parents wouldn't allow me to watch it when I was a kid.
No way. No way would have, yeah.
But it's one of the only 3 shows in America that ranked #1 in its ratings in its last season. It didn't have that fall off. The only other 2 shows that has happened is I Love Lucy and The Andy Griffith Show,
which
this is
classic sitcoms.
Exactly.
Also during an era where there wasn't much option.
Right. But like I Love Lucy is like still, you watch it today, it's hilarious.
I have not seen any, so I can't.
Well, you gotta check it out.
Okay, I probably should.
Also ranked to #11 on Empire Magazine's 50 greatest TV shows of all time. I think that was 2008.
That's deserved, because maybe because it's so long, it just captures this era too. That's also like this historical thing where it's like, what was it like to live during this time? You could watch Seinfeld and get that, but you also can get what's it like being a human, and you watch Seinfeld and you get that. Like, it works on 2 layers.
How not to act.
It has and I want to say, I've heard people don't like the finale that much, right?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Reception of the finale was mixed.
What's wrong with it? Explain to me. I'm not sure what the con is. What is wrong with it?
I'll tell you what's wrong with it. And this comes from Jerry and Larry, from that roundtable discussion I found on YouTube.
Okay.
There was no way, after 9 years, and there was tons of press build-up before this finale, there is no way that the story that they put on screen would be better than the story that everyone had in their head.
But what was that? What was in their head? What could they have possibly imagined that was better than... Like, that was the most fan service pleasing thing ever they could have made. And I loved it.
Well, Jerry speculated that the finale was completely different than their show, right? It was huge. It was sprawling. It was outside of the small locations. It wasn't about nothing. It was about the show, right?
But then people would have complained that the finale wasn't satisfying.
Exactly. So there's nothing you could do to meet that.
I loved it. I thought it was a great way to end a show like that. Maybe because I wasn't following it week to week. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But
you know what's funny? In the time slot after the series wrapped up, the next week, that time slot for Seinfeld was just the image of a closed office door. They didn't even show anything in the next week.
No way.
Just a memorial. I know. Isn't that crazy?
And then, so, yeah, about your students that you've shown this clip to, how did they react?
Oh, yeah. I show a scene where Jerry is driving on the road, and he itches the side of his nose, but from the person in the car next to him, it looks like he's really reaching up deep. Mm-hmm. And, my students just cracking up because it's just simple, and it's human and relatable.
That's the thing.
And it might be a little overdone, but I think it hits to be true.
The jokes aren't just set up punchline. It's these long-winded things about menial everyday problems, and it's really a unique tone it gets. There's a lot of jokes they just throw in with no connection to the plot, no connection to anything. Just here's a funny thing, and then that's it, and it's all I need, and it's great, and it's very Seinfeld. And I think
there's a loose plot that holds all these together. Like Larry David was really adamant that every character had their own storyline in each episode,
which I
in
love.
Fact, it would be like charts on the wall so that like screen time is similar. I want to see those charts, you know.
I think something you asked me, it feels like 20 minutes ago, my favorite episodes from the list.
My students.
From the list that you wanted was my favorite episodes, Chinese restaurant. That's one of them.
Classic.
It's that's like
bottle episode.
I think that's probably the point where this show, like, people got it. Here's 30 minutes in one place doing nothing, just waiting.
The parking garage too.
And that's a similar tone. I think the parking garage is even funnier, and it was a couple episodes later, so maybe that's why they got better.
It was a couple seasons later.
Or whatever. I don't remember. But that was a great one. I love Junior Mint. That's a classic. Like, these are awful people. What's another one?
Soup Nazi.
Soup Nazi. Probably one of my favorite episodes, because just whoever was the actor, he was the Soup Nazi.
He was wonderful.
I mean, that was fantastic. He if he was in every episode, I'd be fine, because he's just as good as everyone else.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, all of them were good.
7.
Everyone you showed me was good. 7 was great. That one's probably the most quotable one. with soda. What's wrong with soda?
So great.
Like, while she's giving birth, he's like antagonizing these people while they're going into labor.
And that's why he's terrible. He's so focused on his own self-interest that no one else matters.
Bubble Boy.
Yes. Oh, that's good, yeah.
Another great one. He just won't give up the rule. Yup, well, it's a typo. That means he didn't. The moops, Jerry. That's
so good.
Another classic. I don't know if I.
What did you think about the finale?
See, I loved it. I don't think I want more, though. I think, unlike you, I'm pretty satisfied with what's there. I don't want a reunion. I don't think I want one.
It's like I do, but I don't. I feel like there's so much more to mine from our society, but then again, like, imagine Jerry dealing with millennials.
No matter how great, I just his new show, I find wildly more interesting, and I feel
we could do a whole episode.
Yeah, and I feel comedians in cars getting coffee captures a lot of what I like about Seinfeld too.
It's just two guys talking in a coffee
shop. It's just about nothing, but it's about everything. You know, like it's about nothing, yet it's about everything that life is. You know.
I think you just captured Seinfeld.
Did I just drop some gold accidentally?
It's a show about nothing. Yet it's about everything.
Well, you're welcome. It's the little things, those little things. I think I'd rather him work on what he's doing now, because I find it wildly more interesting, and it's also even more real to life because it's actually real life.
I mean, he got to go with the president of the United States. That's pretty sweet.
Well, that episode wasn't as good as some of them. Like,
no, but I'm just thinking for his career, like. He tells jokes for a living, and that got him in the White House.
You know why I'm upset a little bit by Comedians in Cars? The one time he gets Costanza on, they do a reunion thing. And I would have rathered an actual Comedians in Cars getting coffee with Jason Alexander way more than just another Seinfeld scene. Because I've seen 9 seasons of Seinfeld already.
Yeah.
And really... He still does stand-up, and I feel like a lot of his stand-up informed the writing of the show. So I feel like just watch his stand-up, you'll still get the same commentary.
Yeah, but you don't get George. I mean, that's the thing. George was a huge selling point of the show.
You're right. It's impossible to not enjoy George at every second he's on screen.
Exactly.
And it's
you feel bad for him. Like, I think it's the physicality of Jason Alexander. He's short, he's bald, he's just a plucky guy with glasses, and that somehow his performance lets you sympathize with him, yet also hate him.
You know what I love? There's an episode near the end and I can't remember exactly what it is, but he was dating a girl, and then he finds out she's yada yada. It was yada yada. And she's shoplifting, and he finds that out. Finally finds out what the yada yada in the stories are, and that turns him off. Like, how could she be so morally corrupt that she would shoplift and steal? Yet, like, what are you talking about, George? You're like one of the most morally reprehensible humans on earth. Like,
did you watch the episode with the Human Fund Foundation?
No. What is that?
Oh, that's a great one. He gives I won't spoil the whole thing, but for Christmas at his office, one of the places he works, he gives a donation card. Like, a donation has been made in your name for the Human Fund, which is a foundation he makes up.
What?
The Human Fund, money for people, is the tagline, and it's just brilliant. Oh, it's the one when Festivus is introduced. You have to go watch that one. I'm sorry I didn't put it on the list. Well, you didn't put it on the I watched your list. That's you know, nine years. I guess I missed one.
Well, you know what? It gave me, again, I was surprised. I did not expect. I didn't know it was about awful people. I did not know that was a thing. I just thought it was regular people. But that theme of these are just the worst came shining through, and that really surprised me. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that to be.
Here's a question for you, Tommy. Since you're the comedy nerd in this show,
yes.
What is there a legacy that you've seen from this show in other TV shows or other stand-up? Do you see traces of the Seinfeld style in other media?
I mean, when it comes to television,
and I don't want to count the B movie, not the B movie.
The television-wise, it just feels like studios or people who fund shows are more accepting of the idea of nothing happening in an episode, but only if it's comedic. Okay. I mean, we've seen a lot more shows be just about nothing, and even less so than Seinfeld, like Louis. There's probably like 4 Netflix shows that are structured similar to Louis, and those are even more just nothing. They're just nebulous. They're even less. There's no plots. There's no 3 arcs. There's no anything. It's just.
But they don't last. They don't have the longevity.
Louis has 5. No, Louis is on his 5th season. It's very successful.
Okay.
They do last, and I just think that's probably what's come from the show. And
Curb Your Enthusiasm is coming back for I think an 8th or 9th season now.
It's this acceptance of that style, because that was not a thing before. But when it comes to like stand-up, really, I mean, Seinfeld obviously has inspired people, but not the show, the actual stand-up, you know?
Sure.
But I think it just gives the big boys, the big bosses, okay, well, Seinfeld made it work. Let's see if you were a comedian, because there's always comedians that do this type of show. Sure. Let's see if you can make it work. You're funny. I'll go with it. Because now it's like, I'm almost sick of these morose daily grind shows now. It's like,
sure,
all it is it's trying to become the most nothing, and now it's becoming not funny.
That's true. I think another one we could highlight is Ray Romano's Everyone Loves Raymond.
See, that's more classic sitcom, I feel. That's a lot more classic. I mean, one of our favorites as well, so we probably talk about it in a later episode. But yeah, I feel like that captures a little more classic sitcom, and Ray Romando's stand-up is also very classic. It's similar. It's very like just.
But it's about family, right?
Yeah, that's the theme, though. It's about here's my life, where Jerry is about observing life. Mm-hmm. Ray Romano is more about here's my life, and that's the difference.
Because Jerry and all the characters are kind of removed from life. They're isolated from everyone. Like you said, maybe all the other people are good, and Jerry, Elaine, Kramer, and George, they're just like selfishness incarnate.
Yeah. Yes, I'd agree. I would agree with that. Because when anyone ever comes in contact with them, their life gets worse. They become worse. It's like they're these parasites. But that's the difference, I feel. Anyway, I think we've exhausted.
Wait a minute, I have one more thing.
Oh, we got one more.
In the finale,
okay,
they get in trouble because they do nothing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The guilty bystander. I love that.
Continuity.
I love the lawyer. The lawyer character is not in the show enough.
Yeah.
He is just a joy when he's on screen. He brightens everything.
Jackie Childs, right?
Yes.
They were going to have a spin-off.
Oh.
He was all ready to do a spin-off for him, but I don't think it would. I'm glad they didn't. Because that's like a one-note character.
Yeah, true, he is. But I really liked him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we've exhausted our topics. We've gone on for 40 minutes on Seinfeld.
Is that enough?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an endless show. It could be an endless podcast, but, I think...
I have one thing to... Well, I guess we'll do this in the weekly recommends.
Okay,
segment.
so yeah, what have you been watching this week? What have you been reading this week? What have you been consuming?
Well, this week, I've been consuming Spider-Woman by Dennis Hopeless and Javier Rodriguez.
New York as well?
Amazing. Huh?
New York as well, I assume?
New York, yeah. All the spider people, they're all in New York. But I stayed away from it for a long time because I don't need another spider character. But then they instituted her being pregnant. And I'm like, oh, well, my wife just had a baby, so let's see what this is about. And I've been hearing about the art and the layouts are amazing. Just the way...
Okay, you heard... So is it? You heard about it, is it?
It is.
Okay.
So I've read 3 volumes now, just in the past couple days. And just the artwork from Javier Rodriguez is amazing because the layouts... He takes the panels out and has one scene, like a room, and has a character doing all these actions just so organically throughout the room, and it's just so creative. I don't see anything out there like that right now.
I feel like throughout your life, Spider-Man has been there. I think one time we need to somehow just let you cathartically express your love for this franchise because I think it's one of your favorite things is the Spider-Man universe.
Yes and no. Like, I haven't read an official Spider-Man Peter Parker book in years because, well, I'm not a fan of Dan Slott who writes it right now, and but Spider-Woman, because of the artwork, the layout, the creativity, and the design of the storytelling.
Whenever something Spider-Man gets announced, it just a glow, It's like, oh, yes, more Spider-Man.
I think it's because he reminds everyone of being a kid.
I think so, yeah, of yourself, yeah.
So I really recommend Spider-Woman. I'm going to give you some just screenshots of some of the best pages, and people can check that out.
Anything else?
The other thing I want to recommend is a script. A Seinfeld script, not written by the show producers or writers. Not fan, a comedy professor.
He's a fan.
Okay, he's a fan, but he's a professional writer, right?
Okay.
And so, as one teaching device, he had his class. This man's name is Billy Dominu. I don't know if I pronounced it right. He wrote the script in August 2016, and it's called The Twin Towers. How would these 4 terribly selfish people react the day
what's funny?
after
It's
9/11?
like, this is already 15 years dated as well, like if he wrote it in 2016.
But read the script. Go out, Google it. It's out there free for everyone to find.
The
voices of the characters are perfect. There's even a Jerry stand-up segment that opened the series.
He read me a little bit, and I agree. It's very, very Seinfeld, so I would definitely give it a read.
Yeah, if you're aching for it, more Seinfeld, this is where to go.
Gotta love Seinfeld.
Yep.
Impossible to not love it.
So, do you have any weekly recommends? Or did you just watch nothing?
I just watched Seinfeld, so technically nothing. I had to catch up your list for this. So.
Well, I'm still working on Pokemon XY.
Ooh, it's a little hint for the future.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you want to email us at completingtheshelf@gmail.com, if you have any questions or idea topics for our show, please do.
Or do you have a favorite episode of Seinfeld we have not discussed? I want to hear your favorite George moment.
Well, maybe they never watched it before.
Well, watch it. Then give us a comment.
Get some Hulu or get some DVDs in your life. That's where you can find it. That's the only way I'd recommend watching it is either the Hulu or the DVD set.
Well, the Hulu is the only way you can get the remastered HD edition of the series.
If you like Hulu. If you already have Hulu or like Hulu, go for it. I watched it on the original DVD set. I believe it's original, or a DVD set that I was lent by my dear brother. And it did great as well. It was just as, it looked fine.
I have to give a shout out. Corey Mosier, one of my friends from high school, just gave me several seasons. That started me off. Yeah,
you know what? I'm glad you finally completed it. I feel like you've been missing 3. Was it season 3 for like 9 years?
Yep. Yes. Wow. Okay. Well, this has been fun talking about Seinfeld. Next week, I can't wait to dive into another.
Even better the second time.